I met Mark, when did I meet you, Mark? About January, February time, didn't I?
Yes, it was, yeah.
And Mark was talking about some of the things he was doing, and he gave a little touch about his journey. And that little touch just fascinated me. And one of the things I said to Mark was, when you meet someone who inspires you, that person motivates you. Other people can't motivate you, they make you feel better and you go away feeling a bit better. But when you meet someone who actually inspires you and motivates you to want to be better, that's when you know you've had an amazing trigger. And that's what Mark did for me that day. So I've asked Mark to come and give us a talk today. And Mark, over to you. Just going to let me do your thing.
Well, thank you very much. High expectations, so I better not disappoint. Okay, so my name is Mark Esho. I'm not going to say much about myself at this stage. The reason being is because there's going to be an interactive section later, and and if I give too much information away now, then obviously it's going to make it redundant. So I want to talk to you about R squared. It's something I formulated myself, and it's about being resourceful and resilient. So when you look at the definitions of resourcefulness, it's the ability to find quick and clever ways to overcome difficulties. And the definition for resilience is the capacity to actually recover from difficulties. So when you combine those together, they're a very powerful force which enables you to actually overcome any sort of difficulty in your personal life or in your business. So let's look at some of the character traits of someone who's resourceful. They're open-minded, they find value in different people and circumstances. Also, they actually believe that anything is possible. They're also self-assured. They're confident in their ability to find a solution. Imaginative as well. So they always come up with creative solutions, and they're proactive. They basically, once a problem occurs, they immediately look for a solution. They're persistent, they never give up, and they're hopeful. So that means they're very, again, being proactive, optimistic. And I'm just wondering, can anyone identify with all these characteristics here?
Yeah.
How many people? Just okay, that's good. Oh, fantastic. Actually, quite a few people. Excellent. Okay, resilience. So if you're resilient, that means you've got excellent coping skills. They understand that shit happens. That really, I should have underlined that one, because that really should be my number one, because that's my favourite saying. I think Gary actually said it to me earlier. Shit happens. That's life. They've got the ability to adapt to change, which is actually quite important. Excellent at problem solving. So some of these skills, some of these traits are also obviously with resilient people, resourceful people as well. And they haven't got a victim mentality. So it's not why me, it's actually more like try me. Very proactive and always looking to seek help. So how many people can actually identify with both of those? Basically tick all the boxes. How many? Fantastic, that's excellent. So if like me, you're exceptionally resourceful, and as I said, and you've got that resilience, that means anything that happens in your life, you should be able to overcome it. And I'm going to just give you my backstory. So you can get a better understanding of some of the challenges I've faced, and so why I've managed to build up my resilience, and also being resourceful as well. So this is me at the age of 4. I lived in Newport Verdon. Newport Verdon is a small village on the outskirts of Leicester, probably about 12 miles from Leicester. It's a tiny, tiny little village. And back then, I was the only black child in the village, and was also surrounding villages as well. I'll tell you a reason why later as to why I happened to be in a small village. Within months of that picture being taken, I was paralysed from the neck down with polio. So I was at Leicester Royal Infirmary. Paralysed from the neck down. I was basically a talking head for about 2 years. My chances of survival were basically 10% of me living, and I was told that I'd actually never ever walk again. But 2 years later, I was actually sitting up. So that's the picture. I'm going to come back to that picture in a minute to actually explain the actual significance of it. But in this picture, I think it's about 2 years out of hospital. I couldn't walk, so therefore I was actually being carried. So within 1 year, that's not me, by the way. That's what I say. But with 1 year, I was actually walking. So by the time I was 8, I was able to walk. I was able to walk with 2 calipers and 2 crutches. Now I walk with 1 caliper and 1 crutch. I use a wheelchair because it's so easy for me to get around, but I can actually walk at the same time. So that was my recovery. So my childhood was, again, quite difficult because when most children were actually out playing and going to starting nursery or going to school, I was actually battling for survival. Now, I'm going to explain this picture. So you've got a very angry man there, and also you've got obviously a child being bullied. So my backstory is my parents came to Leicester as students, and this was in the 60s. That kind of just shows how old I am, really, doesn't it? And what was common there, because they were students and also they were working, actually trying to survive at the same time, what they would do is that they would look for a private fostering family. So that's why, from the age of 6 months, let's go back, I went to live with the Archers. So David there on the right there is actually my foster brother, and we're actually still in contact. So I lived with them to the age of, probably about 8. I was supposed to be going back to Nigeria when I was about 4, but unfortunately I had the polio. So unbeknown to me, whilst I was laying paralysed in hospital, my dad asked my mum to abandon me. She said no, that she wasn't going to abandon me, but then it then transpired. He said, okay, if he's obviously, he's not likely to obviously kind of fully recover, bring him back to Nigeria. So when I was about 9, I went to Nigeria. It's a long story, so I'm not going to go into it. It's a very traumatic period of my life. But my dad then became very violent. He could not accept that, he could not accept a disabled child. A disabled child to him was a source of shame, and I suffered years of physical and mental abuse at his hands. To make it worse, then at school, because I was different, I was brought up in the UK, and also I was actually disabled as well, so I spoke a bit differently. So I had to endure school bullies, and it was probably the worst time in my life, but I survived it. At the age of 16, my dad turned up with another woman in the house and actually told my mum to get out with her kids. Fortunately, my mum actually came to an agreement, some sort of compromise with him that allowed us to stay. But I survived it, as I said, and obviously that's the reason why I'm here now. And so I came back to the UK when I was about 18 to actually do my A-levels. So I arrived in the UK and then realised, oh my gosh, there's an awful lot of racism. So not only was I actually disabled, now I had to deal with racism as well. And I have then had significant barriers, to education. Because one thing that my parents always said to me, education is key. But back then, things are obviously, things are a lot different now. Back then, colleges and universities weren't very accessible for disabled people. So as a result, my educational journey has been quite choppy. So I'll go somewhere for about 6-7 months and find out I just can't cope. And then I've got to find someone else to study. So I did attend actually quite a few universities and colleges. But again, poor attitude, disability discrimination, the whole lot. But despite all that, I persevered and I ended up with a MBA. Great, isn't it? So after all that struggle, that's all I got. A master of bugger all. But okay, it's obviously it's funny when you look at it now, but in my mind and naivety, because my parents said to me, okay, that I need to get an education in order to level the playing field. I thought, okay, I'm actually gonna go past the degree level. I'm actually gonna get a master's. And so I got my master's, then hit the job market, and then realised, oops, okay, there's a bit of discrimination. and it took me many years to actually get a job. I think back then employers didn't realise or didn't see that disabled people are actually an untapped resource. I persevered, as I normally do, and I eventually managed to get a job. And I got a job as a finance manager, and I was there for like several years. And I started to become ill. This is in the 1999. I started to become quite ill, and I kept going to the doctor. The doctor didn't know what was wrong with me, and I got diagnosed with post-polio syndrome. Now, what the bastard does is that it comes back for you 30 or 40 years, just when you've kind of built, you've recovered. You've rebuilt your life, and you think to yourself, okay, I've learned to deal with this. So it's about 70-80% of polio sufferers. And in case you don't know what polio is, you just might want to Google it. Fortunately, it's actually been eradicated from the UK. So I think there's only been probably like 1 or 2 cases in the last 20 years. I was actually one of the last people in the UK to have actually caught polio. And what it does, it causes chronic fatigue. So I started to get very fatigued, mind fog, Parkinson type symptoms. It was muscle ache. It was actually quite horrendous. So I then had to leave my job. I wasn't pushed. But I thought that I'm going to do the right thing. So after that, I was then looking for something to do, and this is where, again, being kind of resourceful and resilient, I think it actually creates that kind of safety net for you. Although I was actually down and out, I was still looking for opportunities and say, okay, what can I do next? I can't work full time, possibly part-time job at the council or something like that, where whereby I could get a bit of flexibility. And I then decided that, okay, the internet was a hobby of mine. I haven't got like any IT schools. I didn't study IT, and I decided that I was going to create a website called Houses Online. So it's more like Rightmove, and the concept was that I was going to offer free property advertising in the UK. So as I said, very similar like Rightmove. But then I had no web design skills or coding skills. Limited internet knowledge. As I said, it was just a hobby. No hands-on marketing and no money. So this is the interesting bit. So what would you do?
Give up.
No, seriously. But what would you do? So this is the interactive that I spoke about.
Probably just find any job and go and do it.
Rich, you kind of know a bit of the story, so you can't really say much.
I didn't know whether you did that though.
Okay, you didn't?
No.
Okay.
Just create what you can with the resources that you've got there. So you could have, I guess you could have created something, but yes, it wouldn't be as grand as somebody that had £100 budget.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I did. I taught myself basic web design. I used front page. Because I couldn't code, I went to Loughborough College, and I found a student who could code, and he created a database. And I think it was like in probably early 2000, we managed to launch the website. I put all my savers into it. I think I probably had about £10,000 in the bank then. I put all my savers into it. We created the website. It was highly functional. I then went to the local newspaper, which is Leicester Mercury, and had a meeting with them. They thought it was actually a fantastic idea. They loved it. But 2 weeks later, then came back to me and said, well, if we take this on, or if we partner with you, we're likely to lose all the advertising revenue from the estate agents who advertise with us. So again, knockout blow. And after that, basically, I had nowhere to go, and that was it. So I did a lot of internet marketing. I learned internet marketing, digital marketing, as you now call it, and I managed to get it to the top of the search engines. And but despite that, we're getting a bit of traffic in, but we weren't getting that much traffic, so there wasn't that much traction. So in the end, I then had to go out of business, and so my situation then went from bad to worse, as in dire. So, no savings. All my money is gone. No access to funding. Prior to this, I'd actually gone to the bank when I was doing houses online, and I said to them, this is my idea, this is my concept. They say you got no business history, and actually failed to actually give you any money. Also the baggage of a failed business as well. It's that stigma or that thing in the back of your mind and saying, oh, what do I do next? My first business that I did is completely failed. I had mounting debts, I had a young family. I was basically existing on a credit card, and technically I was housebound as well. When I say technically housebound, because then the post-polio syndrome then was actually a lot more severe than it is now. Now I can manage it with rest and timing, but then I wasn't actually very good at actually managing my condition. So, what would you do? What's your next step from here, apart from giving up?
You'd learned to code by this point.
Sorry?
You'd learned to code by this point.
No coding. Because remember, I said I use a student from Leicester College.
At that point, there were websites where you could just tout your talents online and work on a pay-as-you-go basis for people. At that point in...
Have you read my story?
No.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other ideas? Okay, I'll tell you what I did. He's very in terms of what he said. So, what's your name?
Steve Tempest.
Okay, Steve. Okay, in terms of what Steve said, that's what I did. But I didn't do web design, because the web design market there was getting a bit saturated. I decided to go down the SEO route. So I created one of the first SEO agencies in the region. And what I did was, because I had all these barriers, or actually challenges, I did something creative. So what I did was, I contacted four companies, and I said to them that I will get you to the top of the search engines, but don't pay me. All I want is a testimonial. And that's how I launched my first company, Easy Internet Services, and this was in November 2000. We're now 19 years now, actually just over 19 years that we've been in business. So for the first probably 6 months, I was basically just living off a credit card, but I got the results for these companies, and equipped with those results, I then went to other companies and then basically said to them that I'll get you to the top of the search engines, but don't pay me till I get results. And again, it was a bit difficult, because a lot of people back then actually didn't know what SEO was. Everyone now knows what SEO is, don't they? It's like every dick and start doing SEO. And so it was a bit of a hard sell, but again, I didn't go out, I just called them. But for them, the way I pitched it, listen, it's completely risk-free. If I don't get results, don't pay me. If I'm not adding value to your bottom line, don't pay me. And that's how I scaled up my business. And I got the results relatively quickly. Within a year, I paid off all my debts. Within 2 years, I was starting to employ people. I've worked for some big brands. I worked for Amstrad, I worked for The Guardian, I worked for the Co-op. There's actually quite a few others as well. And then in 2004 or 2005, I realized that 80% of my income was from basically from 4 top clients. And what these clients, and the issue I was then having is that it felt like I was being employed again. So they'll say jump, I'll say how high, and it was becoming extremely stressful. So what would you do at this stage?
Focus on the 4 top clients.
Focus on the 4 top clients, but these are the top clients that actually give me a lot of stress.
Okay.
Find more clients.
Find more clients.
Nurture your others.
Sell those clients to another firm who does what you do.
Okay, and then what do I then do next?
But we'll concentrate on the other clients who won't give you so much stress. That you enjoyed that particular element of it, you didn't enjoy the top clients.
Absolutely, and that's what we did. So that's what I did. I decided to move away from the corporate clients and then started to work for SMEs. I created a brand. It's actually not it wasn't me that I created it. My wife started to work for me then, and she said, "Listen, why don't we just go for for small businesses?" And we launched our second brand, which is called Rank for You, which is the one that actually is our main cash cow at the moment. And we just focus on small businesses. So even if a big corporation comes to us, we say no. because we don't want the hassle. With us, it's very much a numbers game. And that's the way we like it, because we're now in a situation, well, we've actually been in that situation for the last probably 12, 13 years, whereby no particular customer can actually hold us to ransom. So from there, I decided to diversify. So that's basically, that's where that's on the left is internet services. In 2004, I spotted a gap in the market. And what was happening is that there's a lot of American firms offering free web hosting, but what they were doing is that they were putting adverts on your website. So I decided to offer free hosting, but with no adverts whatsoever on your website. And that still exists today, by the way. And the way we did it is that we basically said you can have absolutely every single resource you want. You can have databases, you can have emails, but the only thing we're going to do is that we're going to limit the traffic to your website. So even with that, we've still got people who actually host with us completely free of charge up to today. And now we host over 100,000 websites. We recently rebranded because we want to go, because we just created our own cloud platform using OpenStack. And just get a bit geeky on you there. And we just launched NetNerd. NetNerd is about it's about a year old now. So yeah, so that's my journey in terms of my two businesses. I've also got I've done other businesses as well. I've also got a small property investment company as well, because I like to, I just like to diversify and do all sorts of different things. Just something I like to do. In the past, I've created dating websites. I created one of the first disabled dating websites. I've done business directories. I used to have a company that used to own business directories about 10 years ago, which was actually quite good, because we used to have like an SEO directory, and we used to have competitors advertise with us. We also had a hosting directory called HostFinder. So we used to have the likes of GoDaddy, 1&1, 123 range actually used to be my clients, not knowing that we're competitors in a different market. I've also done design of clothes. Is actually one of the things I've done. I read in Leicester Mercury that there's a lady who was selling children's clothes, was going out of business. So I went to a shop and bought a whole shop and put it online, and I called it Posh Kids, and then sold it as a going concern a year later. I've been a domain investor, basically buying domains and actually then selling them on. And for 2020, I'm working on electronic CV with De Montfort University. I actually bought that domain because it cost quite a bit of money, because it's a premium domain. And what we're doing is that we're looking to create electronic CVs for their students. I've also, so for 2020, I'm working on FabSite, because what we're finding is that not everyone can afford £1,500 to £2,000 to pay up front for a website. So with FabSite, what we've done is that we're offering pay monthly. It costs only $29.99 for a website, and you get a really good, fantastic website. It includes the domain, the hosting, and 1 month of SEO from it as well. It's a fantastic deal. So we're kind of pushing that. On the hosting side, what we're looking to do next year is to actually build our own data center in Bournemouth, because that's where we co-locate all our servers. But the big ones, where my big focus is working with Richard on access rating. I don't know if Richard's told you about access rating in terms of what we're doing. Okay, so I met with Richard about a couple of months ago, wasn't it, Rich? And we met at a pub, and we called the pub our headquarters. And I said, after a few pints, and then Rich said, I've got this idea of actually building this website. And he said, based on hygiene ratings. So he said, those hygiene ratings. He said, we can put something like that on a website. And and we can actually rate stuff. But he said, what do you want? Is something for disabled access, and we can rate it on a scale of 1 to 5. And I said, actually, okay, that's a brilliant idea. But why don't we create an app? So what we're doing now is that we create an app, and so that app is actually in development. We've already got a database of 240,000 bars, restaurants, and hotels across the UK. Our third partner is an access auditor, so we're going to be offering access audits as well. We've partnered with a company to actually also to do training. And yeah, so that's my big one for next year. So I'm going to be very, very busy indeed. So what I forgot actually to tell you is, anyway, so that's me there. So that's the reason why I actually introduced myself, because I was going to give a bit of information away. So these are the companies that I currently own. I'm also, this year, I won the IOD Director of the Year. I've won various business awards. These are my latest ones. East Midlands Leadership Awards winner as well. And I've also got a best-selling book, which is called I Can, I Will. And one thing I forgot to mention is that the person that gave me the best answers, I was actually going to give them my book. So, Steve, I'm going to give you a answer. And that's me. Right, I'm happy to take any questions. Silence. Wow.
So, of all the businesses that you've owned,
Yes.
which has been the most challenging?
I said the hosting business has been very challenging because I had to employ Linux engineers or Linux system administrators. So I learned a bit of Linux myself, but then realised that my forte is actually not that. And so therefore having to rely on people has been exceptionally difficult. About 10 years ago, we lost our technical director due to illness, and is also a partner in the business. And we dropped, because we lost him, we dropped about 30% in turnover within 2 years to actually find another partner to actually come in. So that has always been the most difficult business. And again, because it's 24/7, in the beginning, if a server goes down at 2 o'clock in the morning, you got to get up and boot it, haven't you? You got to do something. So that was the most difficult, I'd say. Any other questions?
What made you keep going?
What made me keep going?
Yeah.
I'm resourceful and resilient. but it's not, it's wanting a better future for myself and my family. And I just don't give up, to be honest. I might be down and out, but tomorrow's another day, isn't it? And that's where I see it. So even if I'm going through a really difficult time, I say, okay, tomorrow's another day, and just keep on going. I just keep on going.
How many hours a week do you work?
That's a good question. Too many. Seriously, I actually stepped back from the business this year because my wife now runs one of my businesses, and my business partner actually runs the other. And I said, okay, I'm going to take it easy. And what I've done is I then created other projects on the side. I know. I'm not kicking myself for doing it because I'm actually completely knackered all the time. But what can I say? Any other questions? Sure.
So obviously you built quite a few businesses as such.
Yeah.
What was the best and worst advice that you've been given throughout the years?
That's a good question. Best advice. I say the best advice would be to have that work-life balance. I'd say I struggled with that a lot. I've had to have a life coach a couple of years ago, and I seem to have got myself back into that again. It's basically just business, or just focus on a project. The worst advice is the worst advice is actually saying give up. I think that's the worst advice, and that was a friend of mine, especially when I was going through a really rough time. Say, Joel, just tell and give up.
They're still your friend.
Kind of. Kind of, yeah.
Just not for advice.
No, not for advice. No, not at all. Any other questions?